So the realness was part of a larger body of work, which was for my BA Fine Art degree show. It's called News World, and it was about the intersections of my gender and autism. And at the beginning of every body of work, I kind of begin by asking myself a load of questions about things that I don't necessarily understand about myself yet. And for that project of work, it was about, and still is, about gender and autism and how they link and how gender impacts my body and autism impacts my body. And I felt like it was very unfair as I got into it to try and separate the two because they have so many impacts together.
So I'm pretty fucking chuffed with that.
So the realness touches on masking, and masking is essentially the act of trying to fit in, particularly people who are socialised as women who have autism will mask to try and fit in and appear to be neurotypical. And that was a massive part of my life for a very long time, was trying to do that, but I never could quite get it quite right. And so that this whole piece of work was about that, was creating this suit that also all kind of looked like a ghillie suit from the military, but in like this camp, loud, comedical way that used these materials that shouldn't necessarily be there to kind of subvert and reclaim what masking can be for me. So I use rubber gloves in the realness because I thought it'd be really fun to take something that made sense in one context but didn't necessarily make sense when it's taken out of its context. So rubber gloves make sense when you're washing the dishes, but as soon as you put them on and walk down New Street, you look a bit weird. And I just thought it was really funny that, like, it to me that really represents my masking, is that, like, I understood the social concept, but when I had to put it into practice, it automatically became pointed out as something that was different, because I understood the rule, but I didn't understand how to apply it. Masking has been a massive strategy for me in my life, but I haven't always been very good at it. In fact, I've often been very clumsy in my masking. And that's what this work is about. It's about me trying to fit in and not quite getting it right, about being clumsy in that, and how to other people that comes across as really comedic. And for a long time I was very insecure about that. But now, as I'm older, I'm taking that clumsy, humorous element and turning it on its head, essentially, and being like, this is fun, this is radical, this is great. When I very first performed The Realness, the first time I did it, mainly the first time I performed it was at the BA show, and I felt very awkward in it when I first was in it, which is really funny because it's about me not being able to fit in, and I felt like I didn't fit in when I was performing in this huge suit, which is very ironic because that was the whole thing I was trying not to do. I don't feel like I was performing it right, which is just very funny. And I'd never performed before. I'd never done performance work. I'd never made costumes. I'd never really had to command any sort of crowd. So I did feel quite awkward in it, and I think you can tell by the way that I moved that I wasn't necessarily very confident in the way that I presented the work. But it also felt really liberating to be able to be in a costume and to be really silly and for it to be acceptable in an art way. For the BA show, we invited a load of curators and people just from local galleries to come and have a look at our work. Somebody who came as part of that was somebody called Zoe Lippett, who is a curator at the New Art Gallery Walsall. And they had a residency up that I actually hadn't seen before. It was called the Explorers Project, and it was just basically to support neurodiverse artists. And they came along to that, and they heavily suggested that I should apply to that residency, so I did. And that's kind of how I ended up having this residency in Walsall.
Is that your name? Whose name is that? Whose name is that?
If that's your name, raise your hand.
So the residency was funded by Project Artworks, Outside In, who then are funded by the Art Council, England, and the Paul Hamlin Foundation. And those charities in particular, they do more widely, Outside In more widely does work for disabled artists, but Project Artworks focuses a little bit more on neurodiverse artists.
Got some updates on the art.
Very demonstrate. A lot of maths.
It's a fringe.
This is like on my notes here. Too expensive. Too expensive. I can't afford it.
We've also moved the furniture around.
It happened about 4 weeks ago. My contract was
Naoibh, explain what's happening there.
I'm going to get some corrugated cardboard here to make it nice, and then this is like a Go box, so I can be like.
Ooh, ooh.
And that's very.
Caught Me in the Spotlight is about my experience of autistic joy through music. It's tying together all those spaces that I felt that joy. So tying together my family music and my queer music, and being able to find community within those two spaces to be authentically myself. And the work is massively about just bringing that into a space, and even though I'm in an alien costume, showing that is a very authentic representation of who I am.
Oh yeah.
A lot of my work is autobiographical, so I like there to be links to certain points in my life and time. And for Walsall, a massive part of Walsall that I really enjoyed was its leather industry, because I just thought that was really interesting and it tied me into Walsall. But also that leather as a queer person is massively important as a tactic of protection, but also as expression. So I just thought leather would be a really interesting skill to be able to learn properly. Originally the costume was meant to be all in Naoibh colours and then a black harness, but I didn't want it to look too much like the realness. And also leather is always this black, hard, protective material, and I wanted to kind of try and turn that on its head to make leather a bit more fun. my template idea. It kind of goes around the face like that, so... Anyway, I started filming this because I didn't know if it was going to work, but I thought this is interesting anyway, just to document. So, I'm trying to mould the leather and just put it in the oven. But first you have to, like, wet it, and it sizzles. You can't really hear it anymore. But all these air bubbles come out, which is, like, air in the leather, I think. Which is really cool. So, yeah. This is what we're doing. Do you know what it's giving? It's giving, the Three Witches. Anyway, bye-bye! Autistic joy to me is, it's really hard to explain. It's like a feeling. It's like buzzing in my body, I guess. It's something that makes me feel connected to the world, and it makes me feel inspired, and it takes over my body, and I find it very hard to contain it sometimes. It's the ability to not have to think about how I'm viewed as different, and just to be in that feeling at that moment. And I get that feeling a lot from music. That is my main source of autistic joy. Because this is what the work is about a lot. But when I was a child, my dad would play music so loud in the house that it would, and my mum as well, that it would like vibrate through my body. And that is kind of what autistic joy feels like to me, is that vibration through my body and being able to dance and express myself in ways that might seem weird to other people, but is very authentic to who I am. I mean, I want to play George Michael, so that's what In the residency, I didn't actually have to come up with a piece of work. I could just think about my practice for the time that I was there. But that felt so much pressure as an artist to come up with something and to make it something that was a fully formed body of work. Because a lot of times the way that I work isn't really conducive to a studio environment, so it's really hard to see my work progress in a studio space. And I didn't want them to think that they had wasted their things with me, because there was very little to see until the performance. The bouncers were so fun. I fuck with the bouncers. The bouncers just were needed in the work, because especially in the Walsall work, I had this space that was kind of right at the end of a corridor, and you had to kind of go through a door to get through it. And I didn't want the audience to walk down that corridor, see the window, and then feel like they couldn't come into that space, because I didn't want it to be like a traditional performance where you stood back and you clapped and that was that. So the bouncers were there to kind of aid people to come through into the space and feel like they could come in and dance if they so wished.
We're backstage, getting changed for the performance.
Oh, we got the camera out, so we're getting changed.
I'm a perv. Disha's ready to go.
Ready.
We're ready to rock.
Let me show them your stuff.
Oh yeah.
This is what my bodyguards are dressed like. I'm obsessed with them.
Where's the stamp?
Yeah, the disco stamp. Got disco stamp.
I don't see it on the list.
No, but I've got a ticket, I swear.
What's your name?
Yeah, I'm the Honourable Colourful Disco Era MBE. This is what we're giving. We're going this way. Nikki's going to hate this in editing. Dun, dun, dun. This is what Deisha's giving. It's giving. It's giving. Get out my pub.
Get out my pub.
Get out. What did you say? Let's get trolling. Right. Anyway, signing off.
What we got going on?
Check the time. So this is to make sure that people aren't taking too long in the line.
Okay.
Boa. Yeah.
So, I've got the stamp as well. This little stamp.
Love that.
Of course. Yeah, can't enter without the stamp.
Music was selected in two strands. So there was music that I listened to as a child that gave me a lot of autistic joy. And then I also had music that was very prominent in like the queer club scenes and aided my exploration of queerness throughout my life. The name came about through one of the songs that I chose, which is a Thin Lizzy song called Dancing in the Moonlight, and his bracket caught me in the spotlight. So I chose the end of that song, and I invited people then to dance alongside me. I kind of jumped off my box and invited people to come in and dance.
I should have been here by 10. Now I won't get out till someday. I'll have to say I stayed with friends. Oh, to have it worth falling. It means to just about the end. Dance in the moonlight. It's got me in the spotlight. Dance in the moonlight. On this long hot summer night.
So is it worth missing the Rangers match?
Oh, yes, I gave up my religion for you today.
At the performance in Warsaw, someone called Martin Swan came down, who is part of Project Artworks, and they funded my work. So he came down to view it, and he really, really liked it. So he, at the time, told me, he's like, there's an event going on in the Tate later in the year. If we can get it together, would you like to be part of it? And I was like, yes, I would love to be part of it. And then a few months later, he emailed me about wanting my work to be a part of that collective show, and that's how I got into the Tate work. The work that was showed in Liverpool Tate was called Explorers Project, which was the same name as my residency, so it can get a bit confusing. But it was, the aim of the Explorers was to gather a lot of neurodiverse, disabled artists together in one space to speak about, make, perform, to express who they were as people. It was a conference to bring together disabled and neurodiverse artists, makers, speakers, theorists, to speak about their experiences. Performing in that space felt more important to me because it was an event talking about neurodiverse experiences, and I was surrounded by so many people who were like me in a multitude of different ways. the way that I presented myself in this very loud, brash way sometimes was completely alien to the spaces that I was in, particularly because they were in these flat white art institutions that only ever emphasised how different I was. So this changed the way that I viewed the work and changed the narrative slightly of how I wanted to present the work. So I want to lean way more into this alien idea. So the very first set that I created was a playlist that had this narrative to it personally, to me. To other people, it probably just a bunch of songs, but to me, it had this narrative that I was this alien that came down. So the narrative of the playlist was set from the point of view that I was this alien, then that came down to Earth and had to then understand very quickly what the accepted societal rules are, particularly neurotypical rules and values, and how this alien kind of struggles to fit in with that and then rejects them. Art is nothing without community, I'm sorry. No art is solitary, no art is on its own. And even if you're talking about very individual experiences, they all speak to wider, big things that you're a part of. I wanted it to be this upbeat, fun expression where I was just giving it, because that is just how I dance, you know what I mean? I always give it. All my work is meant to speak for me, not my voice. Because I don't like the way my voice sounds, I don't ever get it across the way I want it to get across. So that's why I dance to Madonna instead. The way the Sotheby's related to the Warsaw work was that Outside In was one of the organisations who funded my work. And then I became an Outside In artist. I had a profile with them. And I then was made aware of their opportunities and things, and they had a national exhibition called Humanity at Sotheby's and Glasgow and Hove that I applied for, and I got into.
Very.
This is the dressing area. Here we are. Here we are. And where are we? Remind me again. Where are we? Sotheby's.
It's a lot.
Performing the work in a space like Sotheby's was a very daunting prospect because Sotheby's is such a traditional art space. I mean, it's the most traditional art space I've ever been in. It has actual bouncers on the doors with radios, and there's this air of prestige, and everything is white and beautiful and beautifully lit, and it is like the most art institution an art institution can be. It follows all of the art institution rules. It is this big thing. It's important that I'm there and artists like me are there because our work is so frequently not included in their programming. If we are included, we're in their events programming, and it's a nice little thing they do once every never. And it's just important that this work is shown, and this work is made by people who understand it, and is presented by people who understand it, and is there for all to see. Because what we have to say is important. It's getting better with organisations like Project Artworks and Outside In who challenge art institutions to include work like this, but it's so infrequent and feels like you have to have such a collective voice to get into spaces like this that it's hard to feel like you fit into that space when it wasn't built for you. I make all these costumes and these suits to be all these otherworldly things, but they're explaining very human problems that I have. I related it to the theme of humanity because I explained that if I'd seen work like this when I was younger, or really at any point in my life, that I would have felt less isolated and less different in the world, because I don't see representations like this of myself, and I would have really liked that.
Is it camper though?
I don't think it is.
Is it camper?
I don't think so.
This is so much. Okay.
But I hope that people see it as fun and funky and camp and colourful, and I hope that they see it as a representation of autism that isn't this tragic, sad thing that is to be mourned over, I guess. That autism can be fun. But really, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me because people with autism get viewed in so many different ways anyway, that like I may as well get viewed in all these different ways that people are going to view me and have some fun and put on a leather harness and dance with rubber gloves. Like I may as well do it like that.